Hey, present tense. Good Thursday evening. Hope you're all doing well. Tonight's topic is on love bombing and why it is so easy to fall for a second time or a third time or a fourth time. Okay. A topic request by someone in the group. So I think that you guys will get a lot out of this. So again, this is love bombing. We will talk a bit about love bombing in general, but I think I've done a video on that before. But more specifically, why is it so damn easy to get sucked into it after you've broken up with this person, right? And you're getting back into this relationship. That love bombing is working again, okay? So we're going to talk about why that is and what you can do to prevent that from happening, because even if you're feeling sucked in, you still have control over what you're going to do about it. Okay, so really a big difference between feeling and action. All right, because our actions, we can take positive actions that really are difficult for us emotionally to do, or things that may be feeling uncomfortable for us to do, but we may know that it's the right thing and we're not feeling like we can do it, but we can take action. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So remember, love bombing is a part of a cycle. Okay, it is the first step of a cycle when someone is trying to woo you over, okay, and win you over. So why is it that after we've gone through the love bombing and the devaluation and the discard, we're back to, we get sucked back into love bombing? Well, there's a few reasons. First of all, it's hopeful. You hope this time they really mean it. This time they're being so sweet and it's for real and they're doing all these nice things and they're really sorry. And this time it's going to be different. You're hopeful of that. That's just human nature. And that's that's just part of the terribleness of this cycle. It's so normal to have this false hope. Okay. Second of all, it's familiar to us. It feels good, right? We're like, oh, they're back and everything is fine. And this is what I want. This is what I really want. And it makes it so much easier to believe them because it's familiar and it's what you want and it's hopeful. The third reason is it seems like the easy way out. Right? You're like, again, this is what I want. This is the easier way out. Okay. And it kind of with number 4, it takes away that fear of the unknown, because when we leave a relationship that's toxic and it's really hard, right? Like we're giving up a lot of security. Okay, because now we're in this space of the unknown. You might be a single parent, or maybe you just haven't been single in general for a really long time. You're used to having someone around. You're having to maybe you live together and now you have to live alone, or maybe they were the ones that fixed things for you, or they were the ones that you confided in, it was your best friend. So this is very scary territory, right? Maybe you're worried about what it's going to be like getting back out there. Maybe you were engaged to them and you were planning a wedding, and maybe you're, in your mid 30s and you're like, oh my gosh, this was my chance at marriage and now I'm not going to get married. There's a lot of fear. So staying with them takes away that fear of the unknown, what is my life going to look like? Is it possible? What would it look like if I left and started over? And am I going to regret it? Regret is another big one, right? The fourth reason is that euphoric recall. So when we're being loved bombed again, we're being triggered to remember the times when things were good. We're almost cherry picking our memories, if you will, because if you think about it, there was a lot of bad times too, but it is so easy when we're being love bombed and when we're scared of the future and moving on. It is so easy to think and pick out these good memories of the good times, of the times that things were awesome and you felt wonderful with this person. It's really easy to do that. It's really normal. And also the fifth reason, I think it would be that fear that this time they're serious. This time they're sorry. Kind of like what I was saying about being hopeful, but also there's fear with this whole thing. because you might feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't hop on the bus now, when they really are sorry this time, I might miss my opportunity forever, and it's really what I want. Okay, so what the hell are we going to do about it? Well, here's the thing. Again, if you're going to engage in this, I want you to do 3 things. I want you to watch what they do. And I want you to to be an observer, okay? Just observe. I want you to track it, okay? So track down every day what the events are, how they're acting, what's leading up to it, what's not, because you're almost like doing an experiment, okay? And the last thing I want you to do is be very mindful. So don't give in to any urges. Now, of course, my advice is going to be turn around and run the other direction, because this is love bombing, and it's going to lead to more hurt and more pain, and you're delaying your time of recovery and getting the help that you need to heal. But if you find yourself engaging with this, you have to be very careful, okay? Remind yourself over and over again of what happened. And honestly, anytime that you're feeling triggered into that love bomb or having those that euphoric recall of good times where you're cherry picking these memories, I'm not kidding, write down, I don't care if it's on Post-it notes or if it's just in the notes app on your phone or in a notebook, a journal, write down every single bad thing they ever did to you or to another person. Write it all down. And when you can't think of any more, come back and revisit it and write it all down. And anytime that you're feeling triggered into that love bombing, I want you to look at that list. Now, guys, this doesn't work unless you actually make the list. I know that so many of us think, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can just recall this in my head. It's really hard to recall these things in our head when we are stuck in the middle of being love bombed. It's very important that you have this list, that you take even just 5 minutes, tonight, sit down, jot down a list of all the things that they've done and all the ways that they've hurt you, so that you do have it, because it's possible to interrupt that cycle of our brain, responding to that trauma bond and that trigger and that call to go back and give them another chance, okay? Keep that list handy, because it's so much harder to recall it in the moment. Okay, so write it down, all right, and keep it handy. The next thing I would do is pay attention. If you are kind of, looking at all this, pay attention to their intentions. Okay, to their intentions, pay attention to the cycle. Where are we at in the cycle? I want you to watch and observe, free of judgment of yourself, all right? But not engage, all right? Our minds are more open to looking at facts when we're not in that, in a cycle of self-criticizing ourselves by what we are thinking or by what we are doing, okay? So as an observer, without judgment, answers can come to you a lot easier than if you're judging what you're thinking and what you've done, or I've messed up again or whatever, okay? So keep that in mind. Another thing, here's what I would do also. I think it's important that we ask ourselves some questions when we are starting to get sucked into this thing, okay? And actually, let me remind you what that cycle is. I have it over on my whiteboard here. I'm just going to grab this. It'll be a little bit easier, but remember what we have. This is our cycle, okay? So it begins with love bombing, all right? So I should have put a little arrow here, but as you can see, the cycle goes in this direction, okay? And it can repeat and repeat and repeat, and it will repeat. But this is number one. This is what happens first. This is the love bombing. This is when they're taking you out to eat. They're doing wonderful things. They think of the world of you. They have so much good to say about you, right? Then starts the devaluation. And that's when we have, criticism starting, just all sorts of ways that they're devaluing you, the neglect, all sorts of things are starting here. You're starting to be like, I can't really figure out how they feel, right? Or something doesn't feel right. The discard is the part where you're actually just completely, I gotta number this one, 2, Okay, this is the part, of course, where you're being discarded, right? You're being thrown out like trash. Here's what happens, though, once re-engagement starts. Hoovering, okay? Hoovering. That's when they're starting to show up where you are. They're starting to try to get in contact with you. They're trying to text you, they're trying to basically show up where you are, get in contact with you. They're hanging around, they're having other people report what you're doing. They might be using triangulation where they've got like another friend with a mutual friend with you. Hoovering is the step that is right before going back to love bombing. Okay, so what I want you to do is think about where you are in that cycle. The love bombing can last a while, but it starts to kind of taper off and be less frequent once we start getting into devaluation. Okay, and then, so yeah, I hope you can see where think about where you are in that cycle. It can be really helpful. Okay, so that being said, ask yourself this question. Not only where am I in this cycle, okay, how early am I into love bombing? But also, I just had another idea off the top of my head. Write down those 4 words and write down the tactics that your abuser used for each one of those stages in that cycle. Okay, that could be really helpful too. I can't believe I never thought of that before, but do that. What are examples of how they love bombed? What are examples of how they devalued you? What are examples of the discard? What are the examples of hoovering if you've gotten to that point yet? Okay, which you probably have if you're being love bombed again. There's been some hoovering. Okay, so do that. The other thing I want to say is, and this is a real simple piece of advice that I think that we sometimes don't even think to use, but what kind of advice would you give to your best friend if she or he was in this situation? What would you tell them? What would you let them put up with? Okay, think about that. What would you tell your best friend? And then ask yourself, what am I telling this person about me by allowing them to love bomb me again or allowing them another chance, okay? What am I telling this person about my personal self-worth? What am I telling them about my values? Okay, because often with love bombing, again, even sex is used. So if you're sleeping with this person and being intimate in whatever way, what are you saying about yourself? Okay, what am I telling them if I'm giving them a second or a third chance? Okay, another thing you can ask yourself is, have I seen others leave and rebuild their lives? Is that a possible solution? Is it possible for me to walk away from this relationship? Do I know anybody who has done it, who has succeeded by putting in the hard work and who is happy? You do know someone. That's me. Okay, so think about those who have done it before you. Talk to them, ask them lots of questions, ask them to support you. Okay, and you guys all know that I'm here. So ask yourself, why am I sharing the best of me and my vulnerabilities with someone who hurt me to my core? Why do I believe that they deserve that? Why would they deserve it? Ask yourself that as well. Guys, also, in this pandemic, okay, everything has been much heavier. It's been harder. We are seeing all over the board that people are struggling even more and getting roped back into old relationships, having recollections. Even people have been divorced for a long time. They're thinking about the past more. We all have more time to think, to evaluate things. Those of us that live alone or maybe are single by choice, like me, we might be feeling more lonely during COVID because we really are alone, because all of our support that we usually have around us, we aren't being able to engage with in person as often, right? Okay, so some of these emotions can feel heavier right now, and that is very common. Okay, so if it's feeling more difficult right now, the pandemic has a lot to do with that. Okay, uncertainty and security being up in the air, it really can be triggering. So when you think that you miss them and you want to be back, I want you to ask yourself this last thing I think I'll say, but do you miss being gaslighted? Do you miss being lied to? Do you miss having to walk on eggshells? Do you miss having to feel like crap about yourself? Do you miss them cheating on you? You know, do you miss feeling neglected or invalidated? That's really what the relationship is, despite good parts that you're cherry picking in your mind, okay? Because if you go back to it, you're going back to all of that. Mark my words, okay? So put these Post-its up or keep a list in your phone or in a journal and keep it in front of your face, okay? Because when you miss them, I just want you to recognize it for what it truly is, okay? You don't miss the things in that list. All right, so think about the kind of person who would deserve the best of you. And remember that the most important person who deserves the best of you in life is yourself. Okay, so I hope this was helpful tonight for the topic. And yeah, you guys have a great rest of your night. And if any questions, please reach out. And I'll talk to you soon. Good night, guys.